I would like to introduce you to Hans's little red caboose.
Yes, that's what I thought that was coming.
And let me tell you the real good part of this particular story is that one day the train got into difficulty, and without his little red caboose actually putting on his brakes really tight and stopping the train slipping all the way back down that long tall mountain, the train would have had a catastrophic end. Now, I'm not saying Hans would have a catastrophic end, but behind every amazing person and presenter is the more amazing person who is their backstop, and that is Lily Diehl. Lily, I know, time and experience tells me, that you would have had challenging moments. You would have lost your husband to the crowds for over the years. Your children would have missed out on their dad for periods of time. And I know that your family conversations, even with hearing Hans's story, your family conversations over finances in the past as a young and fledgling family probably would have been very stress-laden. And I want to thank you for your belief in this man. I want to thank you for the passion that the Lord has laid upon your heart as well, as you have supported him in his ministry. Because this is not just a Hans Diehl ministry. This is a Lily and Hans Diehl ministry. And I just want to acknowledge Lily. Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Indeed, I accept the fact that almost everybody thinks of him as Big Deal, and I'm the little deal. But as an Asian, Oriental wife, I've always acknowledged my husband as the head of the family and the head of the household. But I'm the neck. And he has been also very gracious in accepting the fact that as the neck turns, he too has to turn.
Yeah, thank you. Just before you slip away, Lily, that's so true. Just one thing though, many of you have not had the opportunity to meet Lily before, and she's a particularly lovely and gracious lady, so please introduce yourselves. But this lady is also a very skilled lady within her world. So for those of you who are musicians or have some kind of work or ministry within music, Lily is an amazingly qualified lady. So you hold a doctorate in musical education. Is that the correct one? Yes. You also hold a master's in, now is that in management or in music? In music.
Performance.
In performance. So a master's in performance as well. Lily has also taught many, many children, of whom many of those have gone on to prestigious schools. So this lady is amazingly qualified. So to have two amazingly qualified people within the same house must make a very interesting breakfast time, I would imagine. Yeah. So thank you, Lily. Thank you for being part of our adventure this weekend. And thank you, Hans, for bringing her with you. Just before I hand over, for those of you who are here, we have 50 copies of a book by Hans Diehl and Eileen Luddington to give away this afternoon. So as you leave, I shall be out the rear of the building, and you can pick up your free copy. First 50 in, I would suggest, however, that there's one copy per family, unless you don't speak to your spouse or don't like speaking to your spouse, in which you can have 2 copies per family. Okay, so thank you so much for this afternoon. Oops. And one other thing, we're also handing out the little brochures so that if you are interested in actually being involved within a CHIP program, our teams here in South Australia are still establishing their dates. So there are contact details on this form. And if you're not interested for yourself, but you know of somebody else who may be interested, then please feel free to hand those details on. And the team here in South Australia will link you in with the closest CHIP program as soon as they have details of that.
Hello, I hope everyone's having a happy Sabbath this afternoon. Now, if we can just bow our heads and we'll say a prayer. Dear Father, our loving Father, thank you for this Sabbath day. Thank you for giving us rest, and thank you for us all being here. Thank you for Hans Diehl. Please bless Hans Diehl this afternoon as we learn more about the messages that he has to tell us. And please open the minds and our hearts of everyone here, and those that even know maybe most of us know this message, but it just re-inspires us and helps us to go out and deliver this message out to the people that need it. And please bless the people in the world that need to hear this message as well, and bless those that don't even know you and that are having really bad struggles, and bless all the people that can help them. And yeah, if we can have this, even if we can have it in the schools, in the public schools, that we can share this message, and I think we could see a great world ahead. So I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
She came to me at graduation time, and she said, "Sir, would you allow me to take about 5 minutes to give my testimony? I have learned over the years to become much more flexible when these last-minute requests come to me." And I said, "Of course." And then she tells a story. Big graduation, and she says, "I came here 30 days ago in a wheelchair. I have MS. And with MS, I lost function of my legs increasingly, progressively. It affected other parts of my body. It affected my voice. I was a singer in Nashville. I was well known in Nashville. I lost my voice. It has been many years ago. I haven't sung." Then I come to Chip, and Chip has changed everything. 3 days ago, I tried to sing, and the words came out, and the voice came back. "Would you allow me to sing for you?" And we're all starting to feel kind of emotion about it, and then she sang, "To God be the glory." And we're all bawling there. I mean, it was just like a revival meeting. This was a scientific graduation. And, here's a woman that praises God for having found her voice again. This is what happens when you begin to make lifestyle changes that are in harmony with God's suggested program. Another woman, she's by herself. It's nighttime, 3 o'clock in the morning. Her husband is gone. He's fishing. She's by herself, a Canadian lady in a Canadian town. She reaches out to her night table because she cannot sleep. She's restless. She reaches out. She finds a small little booklet that I had given her months ago. And I said, "It's one of my favorite booklets. You might find it sometimes helpful." She reaches out, and she covers it from cover to cover. She reads everything, and under tears, she gives her life to God. The book's title? What do you think? What kind of booklet would I give a person like this that has been through a CHIP program and has been a CHIP leader? No, small book. Steps to Christ. She said, "I broke down totally. I became a new person at that time." Valerie had been approached by the church in Cornwall in Canada. "Valerie, we have 300 people coming to our program. We need to have some nurses. You are a nurse, you're a public health nurse. Can you possibly help us? And can you make some referral to some other nurses that can help us as well? We need to have some help. 300 people are coming Sunday morning between 6 and 10 o'clock. They need to be taken care of. Can you please help us?" And she said, "Yes, I'd be happy to do this. I love to do this kind of thing. But tell me, who is sponsoring this program?" And they told her, and she understood, the 7 dentists. And so the Sunday comes, she takes care of everything. the program is done, the training, the testing program is done, and then she comes to me and she says, "No, you are just one of the 7 dentists. Where are the other 6 dentists?" And I said, "No, it's the Seventh-day Adventists." I said, "Who are these people?" Oh, I explained to her in just a few words what it was all about. A sincere, love-oriented Christian group of people that love God and value the guidelines provided for us. And we believe in health. 300 people graduate from the program. A second program follows. 500 people sign up, because when you have a CHIP program and you run one, short thereafter, the people that have graduated, they tell all their friends, and now they want to come into the program. 500 people, and there she is again. And she brings many of her friends. And so the friendship grows, and ultimately some of the church ladies become befriended with her and tells her, "You know, we would love to have you come and join us at church sometime. Would that be okay?" And she said, "Well, when is your church services?" And she's told, at 11 o'clock. "Well, 11 o'clock, Sunday 11 o'clock, yeah, I can make that." I said, No, it's Saturday at 11 o'clock. And she said, "Saturday?" "Yes." "For sure, Saturday? Is this church service?" "Yes." "Oh." She goes home, she tells her husband, she says, "I think these are Messianic Jews. They believe in Jesus, but they also, they have Sabbath." And before you know it, she's involved with the church, because the church says, "Can you tell children's stories? Can you be the coordinator of the CHIP alumni program?" She is becoming involved with people, loving people. And ultimately, she meets the pastor. And ultimately, she calls me up and she says, "Hans, I've had Bible studies for the last 6 months. The St. Lawrence River, a big river up in Canada, is usually frozen many months of the year. The ice is thawing, and I'm being scheduled to be baptized. The pastor assures me I will only dunk you very, very briefly because it's so cold and icy cool in that water." And she said, "I'm so excited because my heart is warm." And then she calls me up after the baptism several weeks later, and she said, "Hans, I am now one of the 7 dentists." Okay. Now, why do I tell you the story? Because sometimes people wonder, can you help people to go from health to Him? It happens if you treat people with dignity, with friendship, and you give them an opportunity to work with you and discover that you are nice, good people. Valerie. And why do I tell you this story? There's another reason, and that is because I want to pay tribute tonight to Nathan Pritikin, who turned my life around in that I moved out of the traditional Adventist medical thinking, and I moved into a new concept to understand that diet, foods, are very powerful medicine for people with chronic disease. They're good for all kinds of issues. And if it wasn't for this man, who was really a very outstanding, ingenious researcher, engineer, I would not be able to tell you these stories and have you here today and talk about CHIP. Proven in death. The inside story of Nathan Pritikin, 1985. In February, it was a total shock. I listened to the radio, and they announced that Nathan Pritikin had died. He had died at his own hand. I had left Nathan Pritikin sometime prior to this, and I didn't want to believe this. And then I saw in the newspapers the big headlines, "Diet Guru Kills Himself." I couldn't want to believe this. And so I called up the widow of Nathan Pritikin. I talked to Eileen. I said, "Eileen, is this really true?" And she said, "Hans, it is. The funeral is coming up. We want you to be there." You see, Nathan Pritikin believed very strongly that his heart disease that was discovered at the age of 42, 43, as well as his cancer, was probably the result of his rich, affluent dietary lifestyle. He loved ice cream by the gallons. He loved his cheese. He was a gentleman that was Jewish in culture, and a very kind but very obsessed person. He was told when he developed heart disease that he needed to be resting. They said, get yourself a rocking chair because it's over. You picked the wrong parents. There's nothing you can do about it. And he basically said to himself, I cannot believe this. I'm 42 years of age. I have a lot of living to do. And he began to look at the medical journals. He began to study nutritional journals. And he began to understand that there were people in New Guinea who were living 80 to 85% of the calories would come from sweet potatoes, from roots. And these people were healthy. And so he would, and they had no heart disease. And so he would go to his medical team. They were treating him. And he said, look, my cholesterol, yeah, I know my cholesterol is very, very up there. It's about 7.8, 8.2, very, very high. But isn't there anything I can do about it? And they said, no, what you have. You just can't change it. You're just unfortunate. And he said, what about these people that don't have high cholesterol levels, they don't have heart disease, and they basically live on roots like potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams and so on? And they said, oh, no. They're just lucky. We don't recommend that. We don't want you to try, even think about trying this, because it's impinging on your life. You're committing suicide dietarily. You can't do this. Well, he was concerned about his heart disease. He was concerned about the progressive nature of disease. And he remembered that in World War II in Norway, as the Nazis came into Norway in 1940, they took all the livestock away from the people, and the people had to live on very simple foods. They had to grow their own foods in their gardens. And the people got healthy, and heart disease dropped way, way down in Norway, and diabetes dropped way, way, way down. And he remembered that. He remembered that study, and it came to his mind, and he said, I need to do it. And he also remembered that when the Nazis left in 1945 after the war, they went back to their pre-war diet, and the disease came back. So there was a direct relationship, a cause and effect relationship. And he said, I need to do this. And he couldn't find a physician that would monitor his cholesterol, because they all said, you develop iron deficiency, you develop all kinds of issues. We cannot take care of you anymore if you are such an outsider and you have such off ideas. Well, he finally found a physician that helped him. That physician had read the studies on monkeys, on baboons. That physician knew that when you put people on a hospital diet for 19 months, the baboons usually die of a heart attack. And he said, the physician said, I understand that there's a direct relationship between the food supply and atherosclerosis, because these monkeys died of heart attacks just like humans. Ever heard of a monkey dying of a heart attack? No. You feed him an American diet? Yes. So this physician was open to the ideas. And he said, I also know that cholesterol and high blood pressure, they play a role. And you have high cholesterol, you have high blood pressure, you don't have the other factors, you have a lot of stress. I can understand why you have heart disease. And so he changed his diet. And here you see some of the results. There were actually, that number, I think it was 7.8 initially, came down to 7.0. Then it came down, you can see 5.1, 4.0, 3.0, 2.5, 2.9, 3.8. 2.4 was the cholesterol level when he had his last check before he passed away. And so Nathan Pritikin was seen by many, many of his friends in the community. He was a man that apparently had a heart disease. He was a man that was supposed to be in a wheelchair. He was a man that was supposed to rest, and yet this man began to walk against medical advice, and the more he walked, the stronger he got. This man began to eat more of a vegetarian diet, plant foods. Oh no, I shouldn't tell you that. He took 1 ounce, that's 30 grams of chicken a week. 30 grams of chicken a week. So that nobody could accuse him of being a vegan. He said, are you a vegetarian? No. I have some chicken every week. He didn't tell them, because he knew that people had biases in those days about vegan diets. Today, it's the in thing. Today, responsible people know the advantages of a plant-based diet. They flock to it. In those days, different story. And so ultimately, he had people joining him in this kind of new lifestyle, because many of these diseases in his neighborhood also had heart disease, and they had diabetes, and they were overweight. And so they began to do very, very well. And so after a while, he began to promote his ideas. And some of these magazine article writers would come to him and say, "Sir, do you really think you can reverse heart disease? Do you really think you can reverse diabetes?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, but I think it should be possible." And so then they said, "Well, if you really want to prove that, you have to do a study." And so he began to do a study, and he actually found one person that came in with coronary artery disease that was clearly identified, and after so many months, the arteries had begun to open up. And so he had a speaking appointment somewhere at a national convention, and he promoted the idea and to announce to the world, we can reverse heart disease. And all these journals, all these funny what do you call these boulevard magazines, they had the story, engineer reverses heart disease. Well, number one case doesn't really make this a fact, does it? Maybe it wasn't just taken the same way, this is the correct way, and so on and so forth. So we don't make claims like this usually. We want to have 100 cases or maybe 500 cases, and we're going to try it in populations in Australia, and maybe with black people, maybe with Polynesian people, to really make sure that this is really working consistently. And so this man was totally overjoyed. He no longer had angina pain. He felt good, and he felt that he had the answer. And so as this report came out, people from all over the world called him up and they said, "We have heart disease. We are under the best of medical care. We don't know what to do. Can you come and help us?" And he said, "Well, I don't have a clinic. I'm an engineer. I cannot really help you." And they said, "Well, you seem to have helped yourself and you have some of your friends. Can't you just rent a motel somewhere in Santa Barbara and we'll come? How many days should you come? Should we come?" And they said, "Well, I don't have a dietitian. I haven't written any books. I haven't really written any recipes." They said, "Can you work on this? And we'll come." And they came from Hong Kong, and they came from Vancouver, and they came from New York, and 56 people came to the first program. And it was an incredible story. And he took all the blood pressures before, he took all the blood cholesterols every week, and he could show that cholesterol was dropped every week. And we were taught in medical school, in the School of Public Health, that it takes about a year before you can change your cholesterol. It doesn't change very easily. We were wrong. It changes within days. Just like blood sugar can change within days. Just like triglycerides, it can change within days. And so this was the opening of the Longevity Center in Santa Barbara. It was a very simple diet, foods as grown, largely plant-based. Remember, he had 1 ounce, that's 30 grams of chicken per week in the diet, so that he wouldn't be accosted by the meat industry of being an animal rights person. He showed that cholesterol could drop by 23% within less than 4 weeks. He began to publish his results, and then I joined him shortly thereafter to do the research. We had the research done actually at Loma Linda, so that we had an outside agencies evaluating the data that was created at the Predican Longevity Center. And here you see 45% of the patients that came in with blood pressure medication were still on blood pressure medication, but on much less medication. But 55% of these patients were no longer on medication, and the blood pressures were totally normal. And some of these people had been on medication for years. Okay. Then here you have 409 diabetics. As we began to grow the research at the center there, we had 409 diabetics that attended a 4-week program, and 71 out of 197 diabetics that were taking pills for diabetes were discharged free of medication with normal blood sugar levels. How many? 71% of the diabetics type 2 were no longer on medication because their blood sugars were normal, and they were no longer diabetics as long as they stayed with the program. Simple diet plus exercise. And then we also had 39 out of 212 diabetics on insulin. 39% of these 212 diabetics on insulin were discharged free of any insulin and medications with normal blood sugar levels. About 40% of these patients is shooting up everyday insulin, sometimes several times a day. no longer needing insulin because they had found the answer in food as medicine. Then we looked at 51 patients that came in with angina, and only 21 out of these 51 patients actually left with still some angina. The other 30 patients no longer had angina pain because when you change your diet, your blood begins to get much thinner. The viscosity, the thickness of the blood changes, and the blood that is thinner now can get through these narrowed arteries and reach the heart muscle and no longer have anginal pain, which means oxygen deficit. It was absolutely amazing what happened. So then we did a follow-up study some 5 years later, and only 17 of the original 51 now experienced angina, which means there's an answer for angina pain. You don't have to necessarily opt for bypass surgery and stent and all these high-tech procedures which are so costly, and they don't last. We had 64 heart disease patients that were scheduled for bypass surgery, and they didn't want to have the bypass done. Instead, they came to the Pritikin Center. We followed them up for 5 years, and only 17 of these 64 heart disease patients that were originally scheduled for bypass surgery needed to have bypass over the next 5 years. Just imagine, out of these 64 heart disease patients that were supposed to have bypass surgery, only 17 would need it. That's 20% over the next 5 years. That's unheard of. Usually when you have bypass surgery, you have 20, 30, 40% having bypass surgery again in 3 to 4 years because they close up again. So you have a phenomenal result here. But it was really tragic when I heard that Nathan Pritikin had taken his own life. I didn't want to believe it. The man was 69 years of age. He was a picture of health. He really was, even though he had this lymphatic cancer that was introduced by medical treatment many years ago through some radiation approach that was used in those days. And he had this heart disease. But I didn't want to believe that he took his life. And then I came to the funeral. And the physician at the center gave the report. Here are the autopsy findings. They said the widow authorized an autopsy. She wanted to know what was the condition. What was the condition of the coronary arteries? What was the condition of the lymphoma, this cancer affecting his blood and lymph system? And the autopsy findings were that this patient had intermittent chemotherapy, but during the last year they used a very experimental drug of great promise. The drug was called interferon. We thought that was the answer in the 1980s. We thought this was not really curing cancer. And Nathan Pritikin said, okay, I want to try this interferon drug because my cancer goes, comes, goes, it's intermittent, and I really would like to knock this cancer out once and for all. And so he took the drug, and it was only within a few days they knocked out several of his systems, and particularly his kidney system, and they brought him to one of the foremost kidney centers in America, to Albany, New York, and when they diagnosed him there, when they looked him over, they said, sir, it's too late. Too late. Too much damage has been done. The life expectancy is very limited. When they looked at his circulatory system, they found all major arteries and coronaries were soft and pliable without any evidence of atherosclerotic plaques or vascular disease. The pathologist who did the autopsy had no idea that this was the body of Nathan Pritikin because he checked himself in under a different name. And he said, I don't know where this man is. He must have lived in Bangladesh or some country. He has the coronary artery health of a 13-year-old boy. This is unbelievable for a 69-year-old man to have these arteries freed of any atherosclerotic plaque. What they also shared with us at the funeral was the fact that, yes, the interferon apparently had very severe side effects, which really basically moved him to the area where his life was ebbing away. And it was under those circumstances that Nathan Pritikin shortened the misery of his life by some days, by taking his own life. He was a dying man. There was no hope. All the lights were red, red, red. There was nothing. There was no hope anymore. And then basically he shortened that life in an act of euthanasia. Of course, the media had a heyday. Diet Grower killed himself. Well, he actually died at the hand of physicians who gave him an interferon drug, which was contraindicated for this particular condition. The report came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is a very respected medical journal. And it said Mr. Pritikin lived a very vigorous life. This is from the article. And until late 1984, he ran several miles every day. In a man 60 years of age, the absence of developed atherosclerosis and the complete absence of its effects are remarkable. This man, he had trumpeted the idea that you can reverse heart disease. You don't have to die from heart disease. You can reverse this disease. He was laughed at. He was on the blacklist of the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society. Everybody said, this man is not a physician. He is an engineer. He has no right to make those claims. But when this pathology report came out in the medical journal, he proved in his death that he was right, and that the autopsy report very clearly showed that the person with heart disease at the age of 42, now at 69, his arteries were clean, such as are found in a 13-year-old boy. An amazing story, isn't it? Nathan Pritikin wrote several books. 7 books. He became well known. He was on many, many television programs where he would debate cardiologists and physicians that these diseases that we have today are largely self-made. There are food-borne illnesses. And he was poo-pooed at, he was laughed at, but he had done his research. He knew the scientific studies from different societies around the world. 2,000 years ago, there was another man, a God man, a man that came and he tried to help people understand that he came to extol the values of the good book as the engineering manual for health and happiness and eternal life. And he too was laughed at. He was the master teacher. He was sent from God to help us to understand. He spent most of his time healing people. He was the master teacher, spending much of his time teaching people. And he was the man God that finally laid down his life to build the bridge to paradise lost. He too talked about the good book. He too tried to help people to understand that in the book you find the principles of peace and guidance and assurance and comfort. And you find eternal life in these pages. And he too was laughed at. He was scoffed. He was spit at. And finally, we took him as a man that was obsessed with some crazy ideas, a rebel who then had to die for his own cause. And we nailed him to a cross. He tried to open our channels of hateful atherosclerosis with the opening tool of love. He opened those channels of love for us, and he offered us forgiveness, and he offered us a guilt-free life, forgiveness. And we took him and we nailed him to a cross. I'm very unapologetic when I talk to secular audiences. and I talk about what really drives me, what makes me to put so much trust and energy and passion into the CHIP program and ministry that I later turned over as I was getting older to the Sanitarium Health and Wellbeing Company. And it's because I found an anchor in my life, which is Jesus Christ. And I found a lovely companion, my dear wife, Lily, who stood by my side right and left. And together, we made a commitment 50 years ago when we got married. And we said, each for the other, together for the Lord. And he has honored that commitment that we made. And we feel very, very fortunate. I recommend this kind of a God-man to you as the ultimate source of security and joy. The God who came and who will return to call us home. Thank you.
Well, haven't we had a treat today and this whole weekend so far, really, haven't we? And I know we have been really, really blessed. Thank you again, Hans and Lily. And I think it's appropriate to, at this point in time, also acknowledge everybody else who's been involved in helping put this program together. We'd like to thank Living Ministry Media for their services in recording and broadcasting and uploading this online, the presentations to the whole Living Ministry Media team. We thank you. Colin Shackelford behind the desk, making sure that everything works and is able to be heard. So we thank you for your time that you spent there. We appreciate that. Adelaide City Church, thank you for hosting this. Thank you for the people that have been involved, many of those working behind the scenes, ensuring that you got fed over lunch and things like that. So thank you, and that's been much appreciated. I'd like to pay tribute to our health director, Angie Thompson, and her team. As a conference, on behalf of our Seventh-day Adventist Church in South Australia, really appreciate and really honoured, Angie, to have been able to get the calibre of Hans and Lily here to Adelaide. So thank you to all the work that you've done in putting together this weekend, and I think it'd be appropriate if we expressed our appreciation at this point in time. I'll also ask that Angie has a health advisory team that are also working with her. If you would all like to just stand so that we can acknowledge you as well. You've seen most of these briefly up the front, but these are the health advisory team in our conference, and we thank you very much, folks, for being part of that team. Today has been really, really good, hasn't it? But in a sense, I just wanted to I guess, highlight that what takes place here tomorrow can actually have more lasting and ongoing effect, and can actually be much more significant. Of course, I'm referring to the fact that tomorrow there's a get-together of CHIP trainers, presenters, and then there is the CHIP instructors training, CHIP facilitator training that's going to be held tomorrow. And I say that tomorrow is probably even more significant because what we've sort of just had a snippet of here today, what we've been inspired with, what we've been challenged with, what we've sort of been reminded of is great. But the long-lasting effect is when in our church congregations, and through our church congregations, I should say, in our communities, we are able to actually present the CHIP course, because this is a great way to connect with our communities. And when we connect with our communities that way, we're actually reaching people that are hearing this message perhaps for the first time, that are being impacted, whose lives are being changed. Most of us, really, this has been sort of preaching to the converted, but the real effect will be to people that are able to be blessed by this as a brilliant community series that is able to connect and actually be initial seed sowing that can ultimately lead to a harvest. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that those that will be involved in that. That is where the real long-lasting effect of this will actually take place, and that's going to be tomorrow. But we want to ultimately express a real appreciation to our two guests, Hans and Lily. I'm going to invite you both to join me up the front right now, if that's okay. Hans? No, not quite. Not quite. Come up the front and join me, because we have something here for you. If you wouldn't mind just taking that. We've put together a few things here that we hope will give you a good memory and a reminder of your time in South Australia, and I guess specifically here in Adelaide. There are a few specific things there. We have a book there that's actually, whilst it's a children's story, it actually tells the story of how the Seventh Adventist Church started right here in South Australia. And we also have some other material there from Adelaide and South Australia that you can take and look through, be reminded of your time, and enjoy as well.
Is that an apron? Is that an apron?
This is for the head, not the neck.
We can explain to you later how to use that, Hans. There are a couple of more goodies in there. Now, Hans, we were seriously tempted to put a packet of M&Ms in there. But we chose not to. There's a drink that's produced here in South Australia, and we thought we'd just... yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, what is this creature here?
Wombat.
Oh.
A wombat. And darling, I have found something else to lean on.
I better stay home.
Thank you both.
Thank
you very much. And we just pray that God will continue to bless you.
Thank you.
As much as you can continue to travel, to share, to serve. Thank you for being a blessing to us, not just today, but I'm sure as you continue your journey and your trip. And thank you again.
Did you know I learned yesterday about the wombat? That I know that it's a marsupial, but most marsupials have their pockets right here, right? Did you know that a wombat is here? Did you know that? That's what I learned. Because
you're talking to Australians, of course they know this.
No, you see the nodding of the head. Not this way, but this way. Yeah, the wombat digs in the front, and the baby could be here, and they come in from the hind side. Did you know that? No. Oh.
Okay, let me tell you. Oh, okay, you're not finished yet, okay.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I've never seen someone so excited about a wombat, but that's great, Lily. Thank you very much. Hans, did you want to say something else?
No, it's okay, it's okay.
I just wanted to let you all know that we have some refreshments, is that right? Is that in the back? Okay, yes. Yes, so we're back here at 6 p.m. If we can, I guess we got time to be back here with it. If we take half an hour, we'll be able to be back here well and truly in time. 10 to 6, says Leah. There you go. Thank you.
Sorry, just one last thing. Tomorrow we're actually conducting facilitator training here in Adelaide, starting at, what's the official start time, Ange?
The training itself starts at 11 o'clock, but it's really important everyone's welcome to come at 9:30. Hans will be presenting again, a really amazing talk still to come. So everyone's welcome for that. And if any of you decide at that point in time, we have a contingency plan, and we're willing to train you as a facilitator. If you do want to do that, there's lunch included. It'll be from 11 till 5. You would need to see me so that I can let Sharon know that. Because we're going to have to get you some books. You just won't, because you haven't pre-registered. Some of you haven't, have already paid, and that's all good. But if any of you are interested in doing that, we have to sort that out and then order your materials. But we're going to get those later, and we're going to be able to do this. Is that right? Yep, we can do this.
So we'd love to have you join us if you feel that this is a ministry that you would like to take to your church and to your community. That would be fabulous. Now, who do I hand the microphone to at this stage? Nobody?
Yes. All right, we're going to close in prayer. Now, don't forget, we still have the beautiful piano concert with Lily. And we're going, yes, so we'll do that. And that'll be back at I think we'll make that 5:45 now because we finished a little bit early so that you can get home. So upstairs for a little snack and back here at 5:45. All right, let's just close our eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, I just come before you, Lord, in Jesus' name, to thank you so much for the time that we've had together. There's been a lot of information that we've taken into our brains, and I pray that we would use it on a long-term basis and that it be effective and powerful for each one of us and for those that we know and have in our lives. And please help us to remember to be like a cotton ball and not a jackhammer. Thank you for the efforts of Dr. Diehl and Lily Diehl for willing to come here to South Australia and share their beautiful talents with us and their lovely kindness. And Lord, I pray that we can do the same thing as we go out and meet other people that don't know you yet, that we can reach out in kindness and love and be loving and lovable. We just want to be pleasing in your sight in the things that we do and say and think, and I pray that you would bless us with that. Thank you for listening to this prayer and answering it already. We praise you according to your will in Jesus' name. Amen.